We're live. You guys can clap along too. Yes, it's episode 98. Episode 98. Thank you. And we're back. Awesome. This is great with the crowd. Rayhan and Julia and Emily. We have 3 architects on the show today. What an honor. All right. So I guess Rayhan is back. Rayhan had a great conversation months ago, but he was like, "Now I want to come back and I want to dive deeper."
Well, it's a pleasure to be back and a pleasure to be bringing along 2 lovely ladies I've worked with before. So
awesome. Well, Rayhan, he's an architecture student. He's in India currently, but he shall right. And we know Rayhan. Julia, Emily, introduce yourself slightly. Julia, I can start with you. Yeah. I can't hear you because you're muted.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Never going to get used to the unmuting. So I am a rising 5th year at Northeastern University, pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Architecture, minoring in Theater and Environmental Studies. I'm currently working as an architectural design co-op for UTL Design and Planning in Boston. So I'll be with them till December and then 1 more semester of school.
Sounds good. And Emily?
Yeah, so similar to Julia and Rayhan, I'm also a rising 5th year architecture student at Northeastern. I have a minor in music, and I'm currently working as a design intern at Danisco Design, also in Boston, and then in January, returning back to school and classes to finish out my last term.
Amazing. And of course, Said is back. Amazing. Cool. All right. Let's just jump into it. All right. Said was like, Ali, we got to talk about this. Now that you brought a bunch of architects on. As you guys may know, Beirut kind of smashed, blown up with the explosion that happened, right? And a bunch of these houses got wrecked. So we decided to bring a panel of expert architects to help us look at this and tell us, okay, how do you restore a building that's damaged like this? I don't know.
Sorry, you go first.
No, Emily, please go ahead.
Okay. Last semester, one of my finals, I did a paper all on disasters and how cities can rebuild. I was looking in Seattle and Boston specifically because there were fires throughout the 19th century. Leading to a lot of damage in very commercial areas. That being said, it was over 100 years ago, so technologies have changed, and it was in the States where there was, at the time, virtually no building code, so much easier back then to rebuild quickly. I've definitely heard about the explosion in Beirut and done a bit of research on it. I don't know a ton about the city, but from the research I did, it seems like the most successful way to rebuild is just to go about it quickly but carefully, and just hearing from the citizens in what they think would improve the city. And it's not about just getting the city rebuilt for the sake of it, even though that's definitely pressing, but about making it the same, if not better, and more livable for the citizens. And of course, taking preventative measures.
You know, Emily, that's a great thought you said, just because it's like people are so rushing to build things back because people have no place to stay right now, which is kind of how this is, dangerous. So what like problems can happen if people rush to build buildings?
They could be crappy buildings.
No, I know that.
Not well made.
Not well made.
There's also a big environmental impact that could come from, building unsustainably or using unsustainable materials. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And I'm just thinking too, my education is very Westernized. That's just what Northeastern tend to focus on in our history classes. So my brain kind of jumps to Long Island, New York, where there was a big building boom throughout the 50s with making these single family homes all over. A lot of them don't have basements because there's that big rush. A lot of them, the foundations aren't great because there is that big rush to get things done. So it's a matter of working quickly, but also working very carefully and paying attention to detail.
Yeah, I think as far as rebuilding, it's good that the setting is in a city, because a lot of times like quick residential building turns into, you know, like modular systems and apartment homes and lower income housing, which again, you run the risk of not being as built as well. But I think what Emily was talking about with, like, in my brain, I'm imagining kind of suburbia and like the same house copy pasted everywhere, like these companies that just buy up land and build up developments of the same home. Those are the ones that are built quickly and are made to look nice, but in quality are not nice. Whereas rebuilding quickly in a city, you have a lot more resources handy. You have a lot more companies that are tuned in to these projects. So a lot more credibility, I feel like, but also the buildings that they'd be making themselves, I imagine, are multifamily housing. So they definitely have a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a lot more code they have to meet, a lot more boxes they have to check off. As far as being in a city, I'm not sure. I mean, again, I'm only used to Boston, New York, that kind of thing. But when you are building in a city and you have all these zoning laws and all of these regulations that the city puts down, there's definitely a lot more hoops you have to jump through. So I think that that will definitely aid the safety of the buildings that they are able to rebuild. So I think that's also a good point too.
I see. All right. Said, is there anything you wanted to ask more specifically, or not really?
You guys were using like the US as a reference for basically how to rebuild, but I know that in Lebanon we kind of tend to use more. We use different materials to build our buildings and our houses, even in the suburbs and whatnot. We focus on more like cement, things that are more concrete. While, for example, in the US, in the suburbs, they use more like I'm not sure if it's called plywood or like the houses are basically, the houses here are much more structurally sound. But imagine that even with the impact, even with the strength of the foundations of the houses that we have and the buildings that we have, they were completely destroyed from the explosion. How do you check, first of all, if they are capable of rebuilding, first of all, and if you can actually work on repairing these houses, or whether you have to completely bring them down and restart?
I could get into that. So one thing I was looking into on the structures of Lebanon and all, I was interested in the history of, how the layout of Beirut was prior. So I went into it a bit, and, after the war in 1982, a lot of buildings were built quick, from what I understood, because of housing and everything like that needed to get sorted fast. So a lot of the organization of the place was all over, because they just needed houses to come quick, and like villas and everything went away because they had to atone for that. And in regards to structurally sound and things like that, we have this problem in India as well, and this comes up a lot. We can do that for you, but the issue is the political aspect of it. So I don't need to tell you how your government runs. Like, I'm an outsider who's read into it. So that is always a problem, is that they may say that, yes, it's cleared, but there may be something shady in the background that could, just give you the all pass. Like, I looked into some of the structures in Lebanon, and like Said said, it's mostly concrete. But then you also had the villas in the areas that were completely destroyed. They hold the cultural heritage of it. Something Emily touched on was that you need to ask the people in Lebanon what they want. And, right now I don't know if it's still going on, but I'm assuming now the riots are still going on, or the protests are going on rather. And that's more to do with the distress of what people want, because Lebanon itself is a mixed country. It has from Arabs, Europeans, and Mediterraneans. There's an identity there. And to handle that all, plus atoning for these, permissions and everything like that, is going to be a challenge, practically. In terms of the building aspect of it, like Julia said, like, we don't want buildings to just be all the same. It's not a thing, especially Lebanon, with the cultural heritage and everything involved. We don't want it to go the Dubai route, going full corporate and driven. We want it to have an idea within it of what Lebanon is, as well as how how we can develop it in the future as profit. So it does do both at the same time.
Preserve the
So
cultural.
from a planning perspective,
Sorry?
yeah,
Yes.
ask from a planning perspective, what are the steps that you guys would take so that you can start the rebuild?
That is a good.
It was a chemical explosion, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think first step is making sure that it's safe to build on. I mean, granted, my knowledge of chemistry and chemical explosions very minimal. It doesn't extend past 10th grade chemistry, but just making sure that safety is kept in mind, and then also just preventative measures so that there are no more explosions.
Amazing. If you guys don't know, like the people themselves, from what I understand, are rebuilding the houses, right? It's not like, right? So is it like just regular people with like, I know you told me, Said, they're building normally. It's like they bring their own wood and cement.
No, it's a mixture of volunteers and professionals. And there are people who can afford rebuilding, so they can fix their homes and stuff. There are other people who cannot. They've been getting assistance from some from the army, some from NGOs. It's a mixture of things.
I see.
And actually, if you see in one of the pictures from the account that you just opened, yeah, if you can just open up, I want to show you. There's if you scroll upwards to the top. Yeah, the second picture. Okay, these guys are actually a group of French rescuers. They were helping with the cleaning as well. So they're only since they technically found okay, so there's only 7 people missing, and the problem is they can't find them. I don't understand why they can't find them yet. It's probably they're too deep under the rubble, and they haven't cleared all the rubble yet. But it's obviously there's no way they're gonna find anyone alive now. So I'm guessing since we've got so many rescuers that came from France, Holland, Germany, and so on, some of them look like they have volunteered to help with the cleaning and the rebuilding. So that's one image of what's going on. So it's not only just the people.
It's not just people, professionals from around the world are coming to help out. I see. Well, that's good. Well, that's good.
It's a combined effort.
I see. I see. You know what? 2020 just made me realize that I don't live in a city anymore. I just want to live in a mountain house away from everything that happened. I don't know. What about you guys? Do you have like a similar vibe? Because I live in LA right now. Yeah, we did talk about this last time a bit.
We talked about this last time. Yeah, it's a really tough question nowadays. It's getting worse and worse. I live in Mumbai, for God's sake. Like you can already imagine how that's going, especially with COVID-19 and everything. I don't know. It kind of depends on. I guess that's more your financials now and your personality in itself. You know, like you're saying, I don't want to live in a city anymore because all this could happen. You don't know what could happen in the hill. You know, there's rock slides and stuff.
It's two different problems.
Like, yeah, I know, two very different problems, but they are problems at the end of the day. And even in that aspect, you have to think, you know, how you can structurally manage that, and finances and everything goes into that. There's a lot of factors in that. I don't know. For me personally, I still would stay in the city just because I've lived in cities my entire life. So that's how I am, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, my parents lived out in California during the Northridge earthquake of 1994, which is, you know, obviously I was not alive. I was born in 98. But from their experience and their photos, personally, that's something that I can equate to what happened to Beirut, obviously, because earthquake and chemical explosion are far apart from each other. But as far as the destruction of the city or of the area around, you know, the epicenter of this earthquake, again, you're seeing these like massive concrete buildings just like crumbled. And it's insane to see, you know, how the rescuing and the cleaning up, how big of a part that really is in the wake of destruction. Because again, we're talking about like, okay, next step is to rebuild, but actually it is to clean and save and prepare for new building. But again, like Northridge earthquake was in LA. LA is a huge city, and even you know, something like 9/11 or something like the explosion in Beirut are totally different to a natural disaster, which we're seeing in California now with wildfires and earthquakes and all of this stuff. So, you know, part of it might be political and, you know, might be mishandling of chemicals. The other part is the earth kind of fighting back from all we're doing, even as architects. So I think location doesn't really matter
Wow.
as far as being like
building good buildings,
worried about this kind of destruction, because it's gonna happen everywhere. If you're not in a city that's, you know, not associated with these kinds of disasters we're seeing in Beirut, then the earth will find a way to just help destroy you somewhere else.
And this is
Rightfully
Northridge
so.
earthquake here that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I didn't know this happened. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I only know because my parents were there, and you know, they have that picture of, you know, the cars being crushed.
Yes.
They lived down the street from this apartment complex where the first level was parking garage and the units were like level 2 and 3. But when they walked by, it looked like the entire first level never existed. Like it just vertically. So obviously a different kind of disaster, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is you can't live in fear of destruction because it's gonna happen literally anywhere. So.
What was the magnitude of the earthquake?
Sorry?
The magnitude of that earthquake? Yeah, do you know it?
3.7.
Wow.
Oh, so that's about what the explosion was. 3.5 magnitude, if I'm not wrong.
Because the same type of magnitude. But
wait, I lied to you. That was another.
Fact check.
I read the aftershock. Fact check via Wikipedia. The moment magnitude was 6.7.
Yeah, okay.
So I think the 3.7 I picked up was like aftershock.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna come to me like, how did that not happen in Lebanon if it's at 3.7?
Yeah, this is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And you, Emily, any thoughts on city life versus country life?
Yeah, I mean, I personally prefer cities. I grew up in a very suburban area, so moving to Boston was definitely refreshing and I enjoy it a lot. What's also nice about Boston is that New Hampshire is so close, so even if you do want to get away to have a more get away to just enjoy nature a little bit more and be out of the city, that's definitely available. Plus, I think that there's more pressure for disaster relief in cities than suburban or rural areas. As is, especially in more affluent cities, disaster relief is going to come much quicker than in a rural area or out in the mountains.
That's a good point also. I see. I'm just thinking about like, how do you, Said, how do you, There's something
I just want to say like, okay, that there's the disaster relief is more, okay, it's gonna be there more, but isn't that because there's more people that are there and more people are gonna get injured and more people are gonna need the disaster relief than compared to in the mountains?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and also, you know, the cities are typically the centers of industrialization and business and everything. So obviously we live in a world where relief comes for corporations and businesses and money. It does not come for people. So we like to think that, oh, there are more people here, more people affected, so of course we need to help them more, but we've seen so many disasters affecting thousands, if not millions of people, and because they're not in a place of affluence or they weren't affected corporationally, they don't get what they need. So
wow. No, I'm just imagining Said, because like the Beirut explosion happened at like the port of the capital, you know, it was like in downtown, it was like in the city, in the middle of the city. Now imagine it was like farther off or not in the center, right? Would people be able to help as much?
It was actually not in the middle of the city. It was on because it was in the port, so it was on the harbor. So it was mainly on the ocean. And you can actually see the crater that it caused. Like for example, the warehouse that consisted of the ammonium nitrate doesn't exist anymore. Like the land under it, it's a hole. It's a hole in the port.
It's
And,
a crater, complete
yeah,
crater.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a big chunk of the blast that was going towards downtown, the downtown area where everyone protests, was kind of blocked by the grain silo, which was in the building that the big building that shows in the pictures. That's half gone. So
this one,
I don't.
this thing blocked it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I see.
Right beside it.
Yeah, this one is the city.
Exactly.
So this is like the city, right? Wow. So this thing
Yeah.
blocked.
Upwards towards behind the grain silo, you can see, yeah, exactly, the major city. Now to the left side of the picture, these buildings, if you pass by them, okay, the ones that are standing tall, they're still standing, but the thing is, there's everything that is inside the houses and the apartments and the office complexes are completely shattered. It's you can't go in anymore. You have to remove rubble and the ceilings that fell apart, the frames, the doors that have completely gone. But around these buildings are like the small two-story old buildings from like built back in the 40s, 30s, and whatever that still have people living in them.
I see.
Some of them were completely destroyed. There are other pictures, of course, you can easily find them. For example, in the account that we were looking at, there was the crane that was like trying to remove the stone.
Yeah. I see.
So yeah.
Rayhan, a personal request from you, my friend. I want you to make buildings that can't get wrecked. Can you do that? You're an architecture student. I want you to build the buildings that can withstand, because as Julia said earlier, and like it really made me think, is like no building really is safe if Mother Earth gets angry at you, or if anything can happen.
You have to prepare. That's one thing. So you have to prepare for what's going to be there. Like explosion is unpredictable. Frankly, it's very like who would have thought that 3,000 tons of nitric acid would have been kept in dormant for 6 years. But I mean, there are ways to build structures that can handle things. In Taiwan, there's this structure. I mean, it's one of the best structures, so they have to have the finances for it. But it's the Taipei 101. It's the 13th or 14th tallest building. It was the tallest building a while ago before Burj Khalifa. And what the curious thing on that one is, it's in the center of a typhoon area, like literally the hub of typhoon, and it's in the center of a fault line. It's in the center. It's Taiwan is known for earthquakes. I've been to Taiwan and I've been here as well. It's known for earthquakes. It's very high chances you will get earthquakes frequently throughout the years. And actually, there was when this was being built, there was an earthquake that happened, and the building stood.
During construction?
During construction.
Wow.
Everything that wasn't held together on it, like the cranes and all, fell. Unfortunately, there were casualties. 2 or 3 people did die. But imagine 2 or 3 people died versus if that thing fell, how much would it be?
Okay.
So there are ways to build structures that can handle what's in your area, like even I'm sure when Julie, Emily and I do our licensing exams, we have to do the tests of, all the 7 architectural tests plus the earthquake test if we're doing California and another state. So we have to prepare for these kind of things. We can't just ignore aspects of the design just because, we don't need to worry about it. It's not in this area. We need to prepare for it. And in that kind of instance,
and is it
Lebanon?
I just want to know so this one, is it the materials or is it the structure or what is it
It's a steel structure that they've reinforced. Actually, the inspiration behind it was bamboo, which I found very interesting. Bamboo is a very strong material, and even the form and the shape and everything is the representative of the stem of bamboo. But what they've done is basically the columns extend the whole way up, but they've put inside inner trusses and outside and riggers that extend out and are these thick. Like they're really thick. They go all the way up and they go to the top. And I think it's like every 8 floors, there will be a rigger placed on it, which is like, that's how you can make a building work. But that's also financially, how can you do that? This is a landmark for them. They have to have it work
I
out
see.
that way. And the places like Lebanon, you know, especially now, the economic crisis is bad. I can't even like, you know, put it bluntly.
Well, what's the
It's
cost
bad.
here? What are you talking about? Is it materials? Is it
Well,
the
it's
construction
materials,
itself? Or
it's the amount of construction. It's the amount of construction. It's the materials. It's, you know, how you're gonna handle it during COVID as well. That's frankly another issue. Everyone's economy's gone down. It's financially you're gonna have a big drain. If anything, this came at the, it's not. I mean, no other way to say it. This came at the worst time.
get creative, Rayhan. What are the ways? What are the ways? What about like this, a bamboo house? Can we get these?
I mean, if we could, I mean,
You tell me these things are sturdy? The big bad wolf
I mean-
can't blow through this.
I mean, you know, in Asian cultures and all, they do really rely on bamboo for some of their structures. It's because of the flexibility and elasticity of it and how sturdy it is. Whereas in Lebanon, I don't know. It's also, like I said, it's also a cultural thing in Lebanon. You know, we have how things are over there with the French, the Ottomans, and everything like that. Like I went through and actually saw some buildings, and I was just curious as to how, like, you know, they designed. They remind me of French buildings from the 1950s and 60s. You have
it was French.
yeah, exactly. Well, you have esplanades and everything placed out like France, which is why, anyways, everyone in the Middle East calls Lebanon the Beirut in particular, the Paris of the Middle East. Not just because of the culture,
architecture
and the architecture and the nightlife and everything like that. You know how the nightlife is in Lebanon. Everyone knows about it in the Middle East. And that is one thing I find interesting. One thing I wanted to point out. There is the nightclub in Lebanon that quite showed me how, you know, you can adapt towards a negative impact towards a positive thing. If you can look it up, I mean, I think it's called the Bo18 Nightclub.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you all know it, so I didn't tell you. I mean, the history of what the Bo18 nightclub, what the Bo18 used to be during the war, and what it's become now is amazing. It's an automated nightclub, like that. There used to be a Palestinian camp there, and they managed to make that a positive thing.
This thing?
It's ridiculous. Is this pop it up there? Yeah, it's by Bernard. Yes, it's a club. Those that roof closes, it seals.
Whoa.
It's automated and everything. Yeah.
Whoa.
It's by this Lebanese architect Bernard Khoury. He's a very weird guy, but his structures are crazy. Like, he really isn't. His work is.
How do you enter
something
this
else.
thing?
It's from down. It's from underground.
Underground. Side, we should go.
It's interesting though. I feel like in some places, somehow designing for nightlife is like one of the, like something that really just reignites old or forgotten places, or in this case, I guess negatively charged places. Just seeing that reminded me of these ruin bars that Emily and I visited when we were in Budapest. And one was called Szimplő, and it's Hungarian, and I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But if you just look up like Budapest ruin bars, it's a chain of bars and kind of nightclub spaces, food, drinks, everything that were established in like a series of old ruins. So I'm not really sure what their purpose was before. Yeah. So in that case, you know, there's like one street where you can go bar hopping, and it's this chain of bars that are just in old abandoned warehouses or industrial spaces. I'm not really sure where they were before. It was just a place that someone told us to go to and we checked it out. But I feel like in these more, I want to say touristy, but also just city centers, nightlife really is something that reignites these spaces and reactivates them, which is interesting because what Rayhan brought up, I've never heard of before. So
that's pretty cool.
Aside from housing, maybe nightclubs is the next best thing.
To be honest, I didn't know about it until I started researching about Lebanon. So it was a good find though at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Lebanon has that mixture between like the residential neighborhoods, but then also like food life and street life and nightlife. And like I don't know, I want to go more into like city design. Right? So how important is it to have like these entertainment foci throughout the city. I don't know if you can talk about that.
I mean, I'm not super aware of the culture that's established in that area. If it's a big tourism culture, then yeah, nightlife is going to be a win financially.
Well, isn't that
but
for
also-
every culture, right? Like, can't you make any culture more touristy? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it, you know, it rides a fine line of, I know in, you know, when we were abroad and we discussed, you know, tourism in Spain and that kind of thing, I feel like a lot of cities can get overrun with tourism while others thrive on it. I mean, first thing I think of is Greece. So many islands. My boyfriend's family is from an island in Greece, and he says, you know, from May to mid-August, it's thriving, everything's happening, everyone's making money. And then from August or the rest of the year, it is just, if you live there, you live there, and that's it. And so, of course, there are places that are known for their beauty and tourism and uniqueness that really thrive on it and will definitely invest in that. There are other places that, you know, are more tuned into their local culture and have a bit of an attitude towards tourists. First thing I think of is Paris. A lot of locals there do not like tourists. When I visited, and I speak a little French, so I did my best to speak French to French people. Usually they realize, oh, she's American, but I'm also English. But I did my best. You know, I want to respect the people there, and I'm not going to walk in and expect everyone to treat me like royalty. But there was one instance where I was calling to make a dinner reservation in French. She could hear my American accent over the phone and said, no, we don't take Americans, and hung up the phone. So there definitely are cities that are highly touristic that do not want tourists. Really on the phone, she was like, no American, and hung up. And I was like, all right. So it depends. It truly depends. You know, racism and that kind of thing exists everywhere, especially in cities that
but aren't the cities built? Aren't the cities built for tourism? Like, are they like in the city design? Is it, or is that just something that happens if they become touristic?
That depends on the city model. Sorry, Julie, if you want to continue.
No, I agree. I think it either happens or it's just the city becomes touristic because of how it was historically built. I think places like, you know, Paris and Italy and these really, really old places that are like hubs for tourism are touristic because of their history, whereas places like certain areas of Greece or kind of more developing cities now are definitely catering towards tourists, you know, building more nightclub places and that kind of stuff. So I guess it truly depends, but I think it's that give and take between they're touristic because they're historical or they're touristic because they cater to tourism. But I don't know, Emily, if you have anything to add.
I mean, my mind jumped immediately to Barcelona because I remember when we were in Spain learning May through August or September, do not go to Barcelona. Nobody wants you there. It is so crowded. You cannot walk around. It is so hot. Just don't go there because that's tourist season. And the city was not designed for tourists. That's what ended up happening. And then you think of places like Vegas where that's designed for tourists. And it's touristy year-round, flashy, all of that. And then there's also the Esplanade in Singapore, which was also designed for tourists, but designed a bit more elegantly than Vegas, where it is supposed to be enjoyable for the residents there. But, you know, it also makes some money, bolsters the economy a bit.
I see. All right. Amazing. I wanted to bring something up specifically. I had a specific question for you. Rayhan, specifically, I'm gonna keep an eye on you for the future, brother. So this is something you need to know about.
As if you haven't been annoying me for 5 years. Yeah.
The Kanye West domes.
Nah.
All right. Could you live in a building like this? I don't know if you've heard about Kanye, this guy. He's talking about redesigning. Great musician, crazy guy. Look at, he wants to build cities like this, He bought some land in Wyoming, and his whole idea is that, well, maybe like our city life has like torn us out a little too much, and maybe we need to go back to having these like local centers, right, where you have like local communities where it's not like too much technology, and it's just like a group of these domes, right? And like, yeah, we go back to more local
Can I just point out, this is not a new thing.
This is not a new thing.
No.
Good. Thank you, Ray.
There's these structures they've been built by this company called Cal Earth, but a different design material. They use rammed earth for this stuff. They build domes like this, and they have a whole teaching section in California. It's by an Iranian. His name's Nader Khalili, and this is basically the same concept. And not even just this is a sustainable thing. It's called earth ships. They're built on sustainable goods. So let's say you throw bottles or bottle caps or whatever, they will use that in their structures. And it's to go back to a more logical and sustainable way of living. This is like, it's the most basic form of it. To be honest, I don't like to diss on Kanye. I love Kanye. Beautiful Darkest Fantasy is my favorite album ever.
But, but these structures.
It wouldn't be too bad, but I wouldn't be there forever. So.
What is it? Just like it's not practical to live in something like that?
I mean, it's not practical because how are you gonna live? You're gonna go back to rural times. I think you mentioned that, right?
That's what he's. Yeah.
Yeah, Kanye West living in rural times isn't happening. So.
Living here.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
happening with the cameras around.
So no, I wouldn't go for that.
To me, like I'm trying to do like some quick research on my phone just to see like where did he come up with this original idea? Because that's not an original idea.
Where is it from?
I thought you were just pulling up pictures of like an old native reservation. That's literally a wigwam. And being from native descent myself, Choctaw and Cherokee. So if you just look up like Native American wigwam.
American
so
what?
That's essentially wigwam, WIGWAM. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, the domes.
So this is like your typical structure for a Native American tribes back before time itself. The fact that he gives no credit to the Native population, doesn't ask their permission because this is highly cultural, spiritual, all of the above. And the fact that these Native people back in were literally torn off their land, assassinated, cut out of history because they chose to live in these ways, and they were seen as savages and they were seen as dirty people, enemies. The fact that the entire native, not entire, but a good chunk of the native race were destroyed because they lived like this, and now someone like Kanye is like, oh no, it's my idea, let's bring it back. It's incredibly offensive.
That's interesting.
So I would like to see if he's gotten any backlash from that kind of community, because I don't really know Kanye's music. I would like to not associate with him because I think he's a crazy person, especially with all of him and his politics nowadays. So maybe I'm just subject to being angry when I hear his name.
That's fair. That's fair. I thought to bring it up to your opinions.
Yeah.
Kind of justified. I mean.
All right.
Yeah, it's also having that uniformity. That's not new. That's some 1950s bullshit. Like it was rejected then. No one wants that now.
I just pulled it up. I was just asking.
I don't know. The whole thing about reusable, sustainability and recyclable materials, that's awesome. That's great. That's not new though. There's a cardboard cathedral in New Zealand that is so much more beautiful than that.
Emily, I understand it's not new, but it's not mainstream. Is the thing, right? We need these things to be mainstream. It's not funny, Rayhan. We need to live sustainably.
It's not funny at all. No. You're right. You're right.
We need to live. Well, isn't the future of housing sustainable housing? I don't know.
That is true.
And how do you go about
Yes,
doing
but
that?
it just has a different flavor when it's coming from someone who claims he's a god.
That's very literally.
So,
I'm sorry, you cannot preach for sustainability, but take private jets everywhere.
Yep. Yep.
I see. All
And
right.
also, if you about sustainability, we're not in the, like Emily said, we're not in the 1950s. We're in 2020. We have the technology that can get sustainability without going back to, you know, the olden days.
What are these
And I don't-
technologies, and why can we see them? Yeah, that
I
can make
mean-
sustainable, living.
I just pointed out earth ships to you, which was one. Which
Earth
was
ships.
literally you go back to a rural way of living, but you make your own electricity, because everything you do is sustainable, and it's going. You just have a fucking oh god, I swore. You have to go back to plantations and stuff like that, and it's not even like that. You just have a planter, and you manage them themselves, and you get electricity.
What?
That's all you need.
What is this?
Open it. Open it. Open it up.
What
Open
is
it up.
this?
It's wild. This was my first intro into architecture. It's the first thing I studied.
I've never heard of this.
My
look.
Yeah,
father,
me neither.
my father preached this.
What is
this was this was in. I'm sure it's in
Lord of the
California.
Rings. It's in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Is where this is from.
Hell yeah.
It's in more deserted areas of the states. I forget who designed it, but their whole concept was that, you know, we want to live in a sustainable way of living, but we also want to go with the times. You know, we design homes that are more modern, but we want it to be sustainable at the same time. So I can't remember the engineering behind it. There was a lot. I wrote a whole paper on it, but that was, again, 5 years ago. So it is a real interesting way of living. Like, even you can see, I think in some of the facades, they've used the holes are made of glass bottles. That's all bottles.
Wait, what?
Go to the
Which one?
top, the second top right.
This one?
No. It was a green dome. It was a green dome structure. I didn't see it. Now I can't see it.
Wow.
Ah,
This one?
press it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm lagging behind a bit, I think.
No, you're good. But yeah, I'm looking at this green dome here, and that was glass. That's glass bottles. That's making that reflection there.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. That's it. That's the
Wow.
same one. Yeah. So that's like
beautiful.
you get air through it. You get good ventilation, and you get a nice aesthetic as well, and good lighting. So,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
it's in New Mexico. That's where it is.
I see. Amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Sounds good. All right. We don't have too much time left, but I wanted to ask you guys about what you guys like working on specifically. Like, what kind of architecture interests you the most? Let's start with Rayhan here. He did that's how you know he's ready.
No. I was actually doing that because I was excited to see what Emily and Julia had to do.
All right. All
I
right,
have
sure.
not seen them in a while, so.
Do you wanna start, Rayhan, or is there?
I think let the girls go ahead.
Let's go. Girls, go ahead. All right.
Women.
Women. All right. Who'd like to?
Women, I'm sorry.
Volunteer first.
Rayhan, you're not here. I can't give you a hard time in person.
Yeah,
I
I
have to
know.
do it virtually. Well, now that I'm already talking, I'll go first. So I have interest in a lot of things. I have interest in a lot of more temporary design, like just fully immersive exhibit design and theatrical design, because I like the idea of using design and physical surrounding to help tell a story, whether it's a play or an experience in a museum or something like that. As far as more long-term architecture, programmatically, I'm really interested in more communal activity like performance spaces or community centers or museums. And as far as style, I personally love a nice mid-century. The 70s are very hype to me. But I also am extremely interested in local design. So, you know, more culturally informed places, like in New Mexico, the use of adobe, out here in the East Coast, the use of the more New England style. So I'm really interested in the relationship between local culture and cultural buildings. And I also am really interested in restoration. So not knocking an old building down and building new, but finding ways to incorporate it into whatever the design might require. So a lot of interest in many things, but I have time to figure out what I want to do.
That's amazing. And if Emily?
Oh, no, sorry. You continue.
No, it's your turn. And then we can talk after this.
I, similar to Julia, I really enjoy cultural centers. I really love concert halls and theaters. When we were abroad, every single concert hall we walked into, I was just freaking out. Plus, acoustics are such a fascinating science. We don't learn a ton about it in school. At one of my previous jobs, I was working on an acoustic rail, which is just a wall with a bunch of different strips of material in order to have the sound properly bounce around. So it was really cool kind of getting to learn a little bit about that. I also enjoy a lot of civic projects. The firm I'm currently working at specializes in public schools. And I've had so much fun working on those. And yeah, it's so nice to, that's not the correct word. It's really interesting to see what goes into a building in a school specifically, and how to make it accessible for all kids. Plus, there's just so many different programs that can go into it, and so much thought. So I do enjoy that a lot.
Amazing. And, we'll talk more after this, but Rayhan?
I actually had a fun idea when we were coming up with this. So what I mentioned in my last podcast, I was working on some work in one of my cousin's offices. And what I thought would be a fun idea was to show what a second year, okay, I'll preface this. My portfolio has not been redone in a while. So I thought it would be fun to show what a second year architecture student's work is versus what architects in the 4th and 5th and in employers' years are. So Ali, is it possible for you to allow me to share my screen?
Oh, let me see how I can do that. Oh, you're trying to hijack the system. Of course, my brother. Here you go.
I mean, it's me, so you should know it by now.
I can't make, but I can make you the host, so you're the host.
So I can kick you, okay.
Well, you can, yeah, exactly.
No, don't worry, I won't do that to you. Okay.
You're a host.
So I thought I would show, like I said, I'll just go quickly in terms of what a second year would go versus what upper years would go. So this is an old project I did, and me, Julie, and Emily did this in a class. It was Blackstone Innovation School. The goal of it was to renovate the existing plot of that school and its community so we could include offices, residences, green spaces, and a remodeling of the school. Now, concept-wise, it wasn't that hard. For me personally, I just wanted to separate, for the school, I wanted to separate the academic practice of the school to the, performing arts aspect, because I figured that they should be separate. And in my illustrations, that's it. That's the whole concept. It's not much of, the concept is very clear, which I want to point out in this portfolio. If I give this to someone, you can understand the concept is clear, but graphically, as a second year, this may be acceptable, right? But once we get upper and past the years, I'm sure even Julia and Emily would agree, this isn't really, really passable for an employer in his 5th, 6th year. They would be like, where's the 3D work? Where's the illustrations? Where's all that would come into it. So I would summarize what this was now as a second year project as clear concept, but graphically and technically, it's not so great. Now, I would compare that to what I've been doing since I've been away. And I would like to preface this. This is architect client covered. So the names in this have been redacted.
Confidential.
The names within this have been redacted. And there are only 3 images because I didn't want to go, have any issues with that. But you go from, these simple illustrations, right, to stuff like this, which are, this is what I've been doing.
How do you do that?
That's not drawing.
What is that?
That is not drawing.
On
That is a
Photoshop?
render. That is
What's
a
that?
3D
The
render.
3D.
Is that Enscape or V-Ray?
No, it's Lumion. Thank Natalie Hoke for
Whoa.
that. Yeah, thank Natalie Hoke for that one.
That's pretty cool.
So this is the level you go into when you get towards the 4th and 5th year. It's not just concept, it's materials, it's how you separate a space, it's how you present it to your client, it's how, you know, what's your ideas. Well, for this one, I can say the goal for this project was invent a creative space for interior designers, architects, and anyone else interested in innovative design. The space is for designers to come together, discuss ideas, and to present any innovative products that pertain to marble and design in general. Now, I'll just point it out this is a marble supplier in India. So their whole thing was that we want to show that we're a reliable company and that we can create for you products that are beneficiary towards you. So as a marble company, just go back to this image, we should show what kind of items we can make for you. So we went to the aspect of, you know, if you can see here, this is a whole marble partition to separate spaces. If you go up, this is the craziest thing I've ever created. If you see that sink,
Yeah, what
and
is
look
that?
at this, that's just a bathtub sink, and you see the structural stability of it. Now I don't know if it actually stand. I pray it would, but that's the level that you get into in this. Now this is more interior design. In Northeastern, we didn't, you know, we don't have interior design at Northeastern University, frankly. So we don't really have these kind of benefits. But I'm sure that Julie and Emily will attest that, you know, as we're getting older and then towards, even in whatever firms that they've worked in, this is the level of, you know, level of quality that people are starting to expect from us in some aspects. And this is just the interior.
You did the cupcakes and everything.
Yeah, I did everything, man.
Yeah, no, it definitely is interesting as far as, you know, the education, the first few years, like what Rayhan was showing before, it's not a test of how great your graphics look. It's a test of how can you translate a single sentence idea into a physical design that can't say or speak anything for itself. So it's a lot, it ends up being a lot of diagrams, a lot of spatial, you know, concepts and stuff. But by the time you're in your 4th or 5th year, and a lot of projects, no matter how famous or how intricate they are, really could be whittled down to one sentence of a concept. So once you get an idea of, I have this idea and this is how I'm going to present it physically, then it does become a test of, okay, well, how well can you present that? And nowadays in 2020, it's all about these rendering softwares and learning how to use them. Back 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, it was how well can you hold a pencil and draw a straight line? This past
and in the future, you put goggles on and you're in the room.
Oh yeah, that's already happening.
We've already done that.
Last spring or last fall.
I mean, you could do that with this, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of renderings you can take out as a 360 photo, so that when you put it on the goggles and download it into them, you can stand in one place and look around. It's insane. But back 20, 30 years ago, it was, again, just how well can you draw freehand, which isn't something that a lot of schools are teaching nowadays. I worked at a firm over the summer of 2019 that did all hand drawing. They just got Revit in the office, which is a 3D BIM modeling software that's super popularized now. They just got it 2 weeks before I came in the summer of 2019. So some places are still super old school. You're gonna find more in cities that they're using all this technology and they expect a lot of this kind of thing. But it really does depend on location. If you're going to school in a city for architecture, you're gonna learn programs or be expected to learn them on your own, like we had to at Northeastern. Or if you're going to school up in Notre Dame, and you're gonna only learn how to draw with a ruler and a pencil, because I know someone that's doing that right now. So it's totally dependent. There is no American standard, which is wild because all the accredited schools are under a standardized organization, the AIAS. So wild, but really relevant.
That's pretty wild.
to where we are.
I thought that was like a video game. Like you put us in. I was like, you can make a video game out of this.
Oh, trust me, the first time we all saw it, we thought the same.
Well, is that how it works? Is it like a similar like world design between like movie design and game design and what you do?
I'm
not
not
sure there's some
what game design
crossover,
is like.
but I don't know.
Mhm.
I know that with the rendering software we use in my office, and we use a lot of different software that I've never heard of, but they all work relatively the same. But you move around using your arrows or using WASD, so I just like getting motion sickness from the first-person shooter perspective.
Yeah. A lot of rendering software, like Enscape, like V-Ray, like Lumion, are really just extensions of 3D modeling softwares like SketchUp, Revit, Rhino. And so you're really only manipulating the scene in the 3D modeling software, and then the rendering software just takes whatever scene you want, whatever view, and renders it. So you could be looking at a screen with a bunch of blocks and a bunch of heavy lines and a bunch of weird meshed people. But in your 3D modeling software, you assign data to these objects, and that data is material, and that material data exists in the rendering software. So when it's rendered, it looks photorealistic, but you're not working. The only thing that you actively do in the rendering software is move around and take screenshots of what you want to see, or animate people, or, you create the experience in the rendering software, but you create the design and the 3D model software, and they work hand in hand to kind of get that full experience, I guess.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and they kill your computer as well.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
computer. That's funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you have no idea.
I edit, so I have some idea.
Ali, you should see what this computer has gone through, the one I'm using right now. You have
Yeah?
no idea.
Mhm.
It's been pretty bad.
Gotta update that graphics card.
I really do, yeah.
Alrighty, guys. With that, that's time. That's time for us. Said, is there anything you wanted to say, ask before we wrap up here?
No, I'm good. This was an entertaining episode, to be honest. It was nice meeting you guys.
Much entertaining. Do you guys want to say anything, shout out anything, let us know anything before we wrap up here?
Wear a mask so that we can graduate.
That's a good one.
That is fair.
If you're throwing a party, send me the address so I can call the non-emergency police on you.
Okay.
Of course you would.
Rayhan.
People are being dumb, and as long as it's a bunch of white frat boys that are throwing parties trying to get some quarantine ass, I will tell someone about it.
I will stand for this.
Rayhan, are you reporting anyone in India? If you see parties and stuff, crash that party.
Don't get me started. No, but I would like to say it has been a pleasure to come on again. Standard, of course, I would have to say that. It's also been great to catch up with people I've not spoken to in 9 months, I think, if I'm
At
not
least.
wrong.
Yeah,
Who
who
knows?
knows?
Time isn't real anymore.
That is true.
Time isn't real, yeah. So it's been good to catch up and see how things are going, and hopefully, if I'm when I see you all again, hopefully in January, I don't know how things are going. Things will be going well. So
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, this is how we usually sign out. It's a salute to cover the cam. Oh yeah, watch another episode. Like, subscribe. You can do all those things. Share these things. We got to make this thing huge. Rayhan's first episode is our biggest episode. We need to make this even 10 times as big.
yeah, boy.
All right, and this is how we sign out. And cover the camera and peace. All righty.
All right.